Everybody, I've been asked to do a quick tutorial on how to edit some of these character sheets that people have, people who don't have experience using Photoshop or GIMP. So let's start off. We'll show you where they come from. This is from a gentleman named Malik Malwin. I hope I pronounced his name properly. He's a gentleman living in Barcelona, Spain, who put these character sheets together. They are by far the most beautiful character sheets I've ever seen for any edition of the game. So congrats to him for that. But that said, editing them is not the easiest thing, especially if you're not familiar with Photoshop. They are not PDFs that can be simply added to. So let's go through how that works. First of all, I'll show you his Facebook page here on the screen. It's El Tesoro del Dragon. And if my Spanish is correct, that is the dragon's treasure in English. So I encourage you to look him up on Facebook if you're looking for these sheets. You can make a request right there on his page to get a copy of this. He's selling them for the incredibly low price of $2. So really, you can't ask more than that. So let's start. First of all, we'll go with the old-fashioned looking character sheet. This is, of course, what most people are using, the standard D&D sheet that comes from Wizards of the Coast. The best way to do this, in my opinion, is fill one of these sheets out first just to get the raw data you need for the character, and then you can transcribe this stuff over to the proper sheet. So this is my Goblin Rogue character done up in the traditional sheet, and I'm going to basically show you how to use the El Tesoro del Dragon sheet to make it look nice. So I'm using Photoshop. You can also use the freeware program called GIMP. I do not know GIMP. I have never seen nor used it, so I cannot speak to it. My understanding is it works similarly to Photoshop. So hopefully the information I give you here will be transferable to GIMP. But for our purposes, I am using Photoshop CS6, which is an older edition of the program. The current version is Creative Commons or Creative Suite, I guess. I do not have the latest version, but the tools I'm going to show you should work identically in the new version of Photoshop. And the new version is available through the cloud, and I know there is a cheap version of it, only $9.99 a month, so it's a bargain. But there is a bit of a steep learning curve to Photoshop, so don't think you're going to get it if you've never used a graphic design program and immediately be able to make these things right out of the gate. It does take a little bit of time to learn, but once you get the basics down, it's not that hard. So let's go over to Photoshop here. This is the sample sheet that the designer has created with the good old Drizzt from the Icewind Dale and multiple other novels from D&D, from the Forgotten Realms. So we'll start with that. Let's take a look overall so we can see that he's got these lines on here. These are guides, help us line things up doing the graphic design. There's a couple of things to look for. First of all, this is an English sheet, so the background is got English, but you'll notice the text inside of it is written in Spanish because that's just the sample text the designer wrote, and that's his native language. So we'll be swapping that out. The big area where I think a lot of people have been having trouble is around this image. So if we take a look here, we can turn that off. That's basically the base sheet, and bring an image in, looks like that. So what I've seen a lot of people doing is they don't understand how layering works or masking works in Photoshop. I'll get to that in 1 second. If we look over here on the side, right-hand side of your screen, this will show you all the layers. So each one of these sections of the character sheet have a separate layer. So he's done an excellent job of organizing this. Most designers don't go to as much trouble as he has in organizing these different layers into folders and color coding them and stuff, but he's done a great job there. The first thing we'll do is let's bring in our character picture, because that's sort of the focal point of these sheets, obviously, is right in the middle, and you want a nice graphic there. So what I've done is I'm going to bring in a character that I've picked up, my Goblin character. This image I got off the internet. I do not claim ownership to this image whatsoever. In fact, this graphic comes from an Xbox game, and I believe it was on PS as well. But it's an Xbox game from about 2 or 3 years ago. I just really like this graphic, the 3D nature of it and stuff, so I'm going to use this as my avatar for my Goblin. As you can see, though, it's got some extra stuff in here, a little logo down here, a little logo up here. And it's also got that black background. So if I were to just bring this in directly into the character sheet, it's going to be a big block sitting in the middle of the screen. So what I first had to do is do a little bit of prep on this. So what I did is I basically took the background away. I used the eraser tool in Photoshop, which is right here. You can change the size of it up here, like this. And I basically used that to carefully erase all the background around the goblin. There's the other ability here for someone who knows Photoshop. There is the magic wand. That could be used as well to help select the area around the goblin. But because the background was dark and there's a dark hood, they tended to blend together. So it was easier just using the erasure tool. So first step is we're going to basically copy this, this entire thing. So I'm basically going to draw a box around it and hit Command or the Apple key. I'm on a Mac. Copy. We'll go over to the image. You're going to want to make sure you're down in this first layer here where it says character. So he has got, again, the designer's got this set up perfectly. There's a mask on it. If I click on this one, and I see this icon, we'll turn it on and off for viewing. So that's where Drizzt is, the drow. So I don't really care about him, so I'm going to turn him off. And I'm just going to hit Control V to paste. And that brings the goblin in. Now, he's not where I want him, so I can grab my selection tool here. And we'll drag him up around here. We can scale him by holding the shift key down on the corners here. You'll see that icon turns into a little drag and drop. So I'm going to just make that a little bigger so he fits in there nicely. And there we go. That's the size I want. So we center him. Now I'm going to take my eraser tool. I'm going to set it up here so it's on a bit of a buffer on it. And I'm going to erase some of this stuff so it's not completely covering up the background there where there's a passive perception and stuff like that. It's covering up my charisma and stuff here. So I'm basically just going to take this and just sort of, you know, carefully erase a little bit of them just so it covers it up. There we go. So there's the nice picture of my goblin rogue. And it fits in, flows nicely around the graphics. And it'll look good when it's printed or on the screen. So that's how you add the graphic in. If you notice here in this layer where it says character, this big black thing with a white blob in the middle, that is actually the mask. So the creator of this form has set up a mask that will basically blur those edges of the graphic so they don't overlay too much over the text on the foreground of the screen. So that's, in a nutshell, how you put a graphic in. I strongly recommend, if you're going to do this, to use, like I did with a transparent background. You can put it in if it has a background. Again, the mask will cover that background, but you're going to have a little more overlay, and you might not be able to see the passive perception and things like that. So that's the graphic. The text is really not hard at all. I know a lot of people have had trouble with it because it might be a little fiddly at first. But it really shouldn't be as hard as what people think it is. I think they're making it more difficult than it is. So I'm just going to zoom in up here on the area with our name and information. All you do literally to get into these things, there's two ways. You can either go over here to the right hand side and find the layer that it's supposed to be on. I believe it's probably, well, there's name there, so it must be that one. Okay, and that'll show you where it is and what's the name of the layer. What I normally do, though, is all I do is go in and grab my text tool, double-click anywhere in the text, like it is here, okay, and then you can just delete it. So this one happens to have the urchin background, and I just replace it. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but you can't just immediately go over to here and now double-click this one. You have to sort of go off your tool and go back to the tool, and then go into the next field. So we'll put him in. He's a rogue 1. Again, I've got to go back over, get off my tool, go back into the tool, go to erase, select that whole thing. We'll switch that. Whoops. And so on and so on. You just keep doing that. So all it is you go into your text tool, make the edit, and then go off your text tool and back into the text tool again. And all you do is keep doing this. So that's how you change your text. Works the same in all of these text fields. So they have different fonts. Oh, I should have mentioned that at the beginning. The file comes with a folder containing the fonts that are used in this screen, in these sheets. If you do not install those fonts, the sheet will not look like they are here. You're going to get a generic, probably a to Homer or an Arial or something like that, whatever your default font is, and it's not going to look nearly as nice as these fancy fonts that he has here. So the first thing you need to do before you actually start editing and launching this form in Photoshop or GIMP is install those fonts into your system. So once we get in here again, we've changed our name and everything up here, but to get into some of the bigger ones that have the nicer graphics, they work exactly the same way. Go in, grab your text tool, click inside, and my strength is 10 for this guy. I'm not even sure if that's right, but whatever. It works the same way on your saving throws, text tool, go in, there you go. Same thing on skills, a little smaller, so you do need to make sure you get nice and close, but you can go in here, double click, and whatever, it's 7 we'll say. Now, last step, I don't know if this was by design or simply something the designer overlooked, but the skill proficiencies, while it's easy to edit the actual value, what's a little more difficult, or what doesn't exist actually, is the on state for the proficiency little dots here. Now, if you're printing this out, you can just as easily, use a pen or a pencil and put a mark through it. That's great. But if you want to go purely digital, there's no real way to go on and off. So what I have done is I've gone in to the skills section here. He's got this skills folder. There are all of the numbers. So that is this column of numbers here is this layer. What I'm going to do is go down here to the new layer, click that. That's going to create a layer just above, and then I'm going to zoom in nice and close so I can do this properly. Get your selection tool, change it to the elliptical marquee from the square, and then create a circle around, basically fills in that spot. What you're going to want to do now is find whatever color you want. I'm going to go with some kind of a red. There we go. We'll pick red, and you're going to go Edit, Fill, and that will fill that that little on-off state for the skills. Now, not very nice. It's just a plain white dot, or plain red dot, sorry. So just make it a little fancier. What I've done is I'll go in here and you'll change the FX. So if you're on your layer with that dot you just created, you're going to go down here to FX, and you're going to go to Bevel and Emboss. And you can do different ways. You can see what it's going to look like here in the preview. I tend to like the, I think it was a pillow emboss? Yes. So it kind of looks like an on-off button, and it actually gives a little bit of an indent to the screen. We'll say OK. Back out to a view so you can see what it looks like when it's sort of actual size, and there you go. So we've got sleight of hand now is, he's got proficiency in that skill, you can tell. And all you do is any ones you have, you can add different, the circle on each skill that is required. The last thing I guess that I'll mention is, because it took me a while to figure this one out actually, when I first started playing with this, is the hit die. You'll see by default he's got the D12 in there as the hit die. Well, my rogue obviously unfortunately doesn't have D12s as a hit die. So what you need to do is you need to find the die in here, right here, the hit dice layers. We'll open that up, and you can see he's already nicely got all of the die types lined up here. So D12 is turned on. I'm going to turn D12 off on the text, and an off here, and this is my rogue, so we're going to go with D8 there, and where's D8? He doesn't have, so he does not have, apparently doesn't have D8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this text to D8. There we go. I'm a little messed up there for a minute. I had it turned off. That's why. So anyways, so I've updated the text there, and just again make sure that you have the on/off there, and there's your D8. So again, it's nice if it's if you've got something else, you need a D10. There it is. He's got the D6 there. So they're all there. All you have to do is turn them the visibility on or off, and then adjust the text to whatever die it is. So that should be it. Like I say, the rest is all just text entry. Very simple, nothing more to it than using the text tool to get in there. You can change your, change all the text to whatever you want. Again, if you want it to look really nice like this one does, make sure you install those fonts first. If you want to get really funky with it and customize it your own way and use your own fonts, of course you can do that with whatever system fonts you have. However, obviously this one is designed for the fonts that are used, and so the spacing and stuff might be a problem if you don't have the right system fonts installed. So at the end of the day, I'll go over to my finished product here. This was my finished character sheet with my goblin character sketch. You can see I've got all of the attributes in here. Saving throws are all done, and this is what it looks like here. When you get in closer, you can see the skills proficiencies turned on or off. So that's it in a nutshell. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment or go to the El Tesoro del Dragon Facebook page. I monitor that regularly to see how things are doing and other people are using the sheets. So if there's any questions, I'll answer them there as well. So good luck and enjoy playing.